Anyway, okay, it's a little after 7. Let's call the meeting to order. No attendance, maybe? Okay, thanks. Okay, we got a couple discussion items up. First up is our strategic visioning and planning process update with Jerry Colonna. Please come out.
Also Leslie.
Oh, okay, sorry. Yeah, sorry.
We're both going to come together. And this evening, it is a pleasure to be here with you. Leslie is going to speak from the point of view of being a parent on the leadership team that is crafting the strategic visioning document. And as you know, I am your consultant working with Andy and his staff. We thought to start out, it would be nice to get a parent's point of view of kind of how the process is going and what we're working on. After that, I want to follow up and talk to you about the process. I'd like to mention to you some comments from the focus group report, which you have, and then talk to you about our first product, which are the core values. And this is a very rough first draft, but we wanted to let you take a look at what we have done so far. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Leslie.
Thank you, first of all, Jerry, for inviting me to participate with you tonight. This
Great
will be
to
great.
share with you.
And thank you to Andy or whoever put the team together for the visioning, because it's been an interesting process after just one meeting. Just a little background, I have a son who is a freshman in our high school this year, and growing up, I was always involved in his PTC groups. High school doesn't have a PTC, so I'm happy to be involved in some way. I think what struck me right away was how serious everybody in the room at the meeting in November took the process. Jerry had us break out into groups and gave us each a question from the questionnaire that the district sent out. I don't recall when it was sent out, but whenever that went out, we got to go over a question per group, and everybody was engaged. Everybody took the responses seriously. There weren't responses that were being discounted. Everything was considered, everything was heard, and from that we really got to start with the process. What you'll see in the document, I think perhaps that Jerry had passed out or that we'll discuss, is there's an item in there, item D, that talks about some of the values and the thought and care that the principals and staff that were involved and community members, the thought and care that went into the formation of that was impressive. It was a painstakingly thorough process. What really struck me was how carefully the group worked as a whole over word choice. Something as simple as for all, or each, or every, was a huge deal. And there was a lot of time and attention paid to that. And it wasn't something that I had really thought of until that meeting, but it was really valuable to watch and see. There was a lot of intentional discussion around how each item is going to be crafted to make sure that there was an inclusion and that it really conveyed the intent that the group wanted in the vision and the values for the district. One thing that really did to me is it reassured me that what the team is crafting is something more than a bunch of words. The values and the mission statement that might come out of this is not simply only going to be a banner on the wall, which that is not what I'm saying. But it's going to be something meaningful for the students, the educators, the staff, something that they're going to be able to look at and be like, okay, that's what we're working for today. That's what we're striving for. And as a parent, not getting to see the educators and the principals and everybody working together like that, I wish more parents and more of the public could see that, because it was really nice to see how serious the process was taken and how much thought and consideration everybody put into it. It was really nice to see. If you have questions for me, go for it. I told you I wouldn't take the full 5 minutes.
Questions or comments for Leslie?
Well, comment that that's fantastic. I mean, it
Yeah.
sounds great. It's what we want to see, obviously.
Okay, I'm looking forward to tomorrow to see what happens, see what Jerry throws at us.
Well, the one thing I do want to say is thank you. as a parent for helping to lead this and being here and expressing your voice of what you learned and the process. And it's greatly appreciated. So thank you for being here.
And Leslie, I've asked you to chime in at any time while we're speaking. I'd like to talk to you to start with the process so far, what we've done so far and where we're headed. And if you remember, I had the opportunity to meet with you in September, talk to you about some key points on strategic planning, visioning, what we thought our timeline would look like, and what the components would be. So that was September. In October, we held our 13 different focus groups. We did them on the 16th and 17th of October, and we had 202 people show up, which is a very good amount. But what was really impressive was we did an electronic survey through the newsletter that got 359 more responses. So our total responses that put this document together came from 561 individuals. And last time we did this, we had a fairly good turnout, but nothing like that. So this document is 20 pages long. It has a tremendous amount of comments in it that are direct quotes and very, very diverse in points of view. I think we incorporated a lot of people in the district that usually don't come to meetings like this and maybe give input. And for that reason, I think the document is really pretty strong. It's very representative. The next thing we did in November, as Leslie mentioned to you, was to get the leadership team together that Andy has put together for us. And I think we're about 20 strong.
We're 22 or 23.
Okay. And we meet in this room. We meet for 4 hours. I come into the district once a month, and we work on a couple parts of the strategic plan during those meetings. Each meeting, we're looking at finishing in about April, and we'll have the full report back to you for you to take a look at, give comments on, and make changes if you feel we should. Tomorrow, we'll be looking at mission and vision. And January through April, we'll be doing goals, performance indicators, measurements. We'll craft a first-year plan. Because remember, this is a 5-year plan with 5 one-year plans within it. So each year, we look at our 5-year goals, and we figure out what we can do that year. And if we're in the 2nd or 3rd year, we're looking at the progress we made 1st and 2nd year to put that 3rd year together. And then we complete implementation tasks. These are ideas that help make us be cognizant of being able to carry out the plan. So it's implementation strategies, and then we'll have the full report to you in April. So process started with you in September, and it will finish with you in April. What I'd like to mention to you next is some of the parts of this document. And what I've done is I've summarized commendations, and I've summarized areas that we would call possibilities for improvement, or things that people are giving, I would say, well-felt constructive criticism, suggestions. Just on the commendations, there's nothing here that as a board member or member of the community, you probably wouldn't have thought of. I was looking for, well, you know, the last time we did this, no one said X or Y. It's pretty similar to 4.5 years ago. The areas that I summarized, if you take a look on the sheet that I gave you, this one that I just brought around, on the front it has goals, or excuse me, core values, but I want you to go to the second side. It has the short, the smaller thing. So under commendations, respect for you and this school district is very, very evident. The respect is by students, staff, and community members. They do respect the Silver Falls School District. And that came out in some form in every one of the 13 focus groups. A strong sense of community support and partnerships. And so there is a feeling that this isn't a school district kind of operating by itself, but it is in coordination, in harmony with the work that you do here. It was great to hear. Lots of words about the quality of the instructors, the support staff, and the administration. Safety is an interesting one because it came up as a commendation, but it also came up as a suggestion for improvement. And I think that's because of the times we live in now. When I was last in the district 5 years ago and we were doing similar questions, it came up to a degree, but more now. And so it's interesting that it was both a commendation and a suggestion for improvement. Lots of good words about graduation rates and test scores. People in the community know what some of those statistics are, and they're proud of them, as you should be. I always enjoyed listening to people talk about the options that are available, the charter schools, the K-8 schools, the different configurations of grades in the city schools. Not without some concerns, but a real appreciation of the ability for parents and students to have different choices instead of one size fits all. Along with that is the idea that you have all these individual schools. They're really hard to put boundaries around. It's very difficult as board members to have everybody pulling the oars in the same direction. But there's a great appreciation for the autonomy that Andy, his staff, and you do allow the 13 schools in the district. And they realize that there's some unequalness in facilities, in curriculum, but when it's all said and done, the ability to have these options is something that people really prize. They talked about there's been an improvement in district communications, and that was mentioned. And the last one there, and you know this yourself, the career and technical education programs, the fine arts, especially music, was mentioned often, and the outstanding extracurricular activities in athletics. So, as I said, there's a 20-page report here. There's a lot of data in it. I've tried to pick out some of the key trends on things that people said that they really value and appreciate in the district. On the other side of that are suggestions, and just like last time around, I would say the number one item was the middle school and the need to do something about the middle school. And a variety of ideas were mentioned, and you'll see them within the report. Oftentimes when people mention the middle school, they would also talk about deferred maintenance in the other schools. And I think that was more common in the outlying rural schools to hear about the deferred maintenance. I believe, Andy, that the district is already working on an overall facilities plan, are we not?
We've had a few facility plans, but we're convening a new facility planning committee this.
Okay, and so that's coming forward. You see that as one of the areas mentioned. So the facilities plan is on its way, and there is a lot of requests for that. We talked about this a little bit ago, but when you have small rural schools, then the expectations by the parents are that they would have the same curricular choices as larger in-city schools. It's very difficult for that to happen. And so it's almost like we can give you small, personalized outlying schools, or we can give you larger schools within the city with a greater choice of curriculum. we can't give you both. And so we have both of these for you to choose from, and you kind of have to make your choice from there. Many comments about that. Lots of talk about world languages, more consideration to offer more languages, and because the college and technical education program is going so well, and STEM has a good start, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, now that's more and more what people are expecting and asking. And I would say that is really true for parents. They really want to see more of those kinds of options available. Lower class size, every district I've worked with in the last 8 years doing this has mentioned that. It is the most expensive school improvement strategy that there is. But certainly we had to list it because it came up so much. I would like you to look at the one after that though, and the wording there. Overcrowding, need for age equivalent furniture, classrooms too small, unequal curricular offerings in some rural schools. And these were voiced, quite a bit when we brought up the idea of equity of curriculum. I hadn't heard the one about age equivalent furniture before. So we had individuals talking about the desks didn't quite fit the age of the students in some of the rural schools, and the classrooms were quite small. Lots of talk about the music program being available for every school on an equal basis. And I would say that one that we didn't hear very much last time is increased mental health and counseling staff. So again, with the change in times, we're seeing a great deal more need for that. Dysfunctional families, children needing more help. The suicide rate in Oregon has gone up dramatically, and this is with teens. It's a scary kind of statistic that we have to do more work on. I told you that safety was in both commendations and also suggestions. Lots of comments about smaller things that you'll see, hallways and streets and entrances and so forth. Didn't hear that as much last time around, a bigger issue now. And then you've heard this, consolidate schools and reconfigure grades district-wide. So these are not recommendations from me by any means. It's just the data that I've tried to put forward to you on one sheet for you to be able to look at. Do you have any questions on that before I go to my last piece, which will be core values?
This just includes both the focus groups plus the online survey?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And in the report, as you're reading, there are a number of times when I indicated whether it was posted on the online survey or I might say a teacher, and that means a teacher would have been in the focus group.
Okay.
I would also say on the online survey questions, probably were in more depth and I think had more detail to them than some of the comments that we got from the focus groups. Focus groups had a limited amount of time. In some cases, we had lots of people, and so, but when you sit down at your computer, you can say what you want as long as you want. I think people really put some time and energy into it. Thanks for that question.
Jerry, the opinions on the uniqueness and autonomy of individual schools are allowed versus the equal opportunities in different schools. Which of those, did you get a sense which of those things weighed?
Yeah.
Was
I would say
more prevalent?
that autonomy and uniqueness and allowing individual schools to have more leeway in deciding what they're doing would be the greater of the two.
Okay.
And I would think that if I ever got up in front of a significant number of people in this town and said, we're thinking about changing the outlying schools, and we want to consolidate, we want to have fewer schools, that I probably would need to be looking for another position.
That's good to hear you say that.
It's very heartfelt, and yet I understand from an administrative point of view how difficult it is.
Of course, yeah.
Because especially when a parent says, we aren't getting the same music program,
Yeah.
and we have need for larger classrooms, and it's,
Yeah.
I think what you have done and the way you stand right now is what makes sense based on the resources that you have to work with.
Jerry, a question for you.
Yes.
On the suggestion piece, are these listed in order of importance or are these
No.
random?
And I'm glad you mentioned that, because in this whole report, I never tried to prioritize. I was looking for trends. And so these are really trends, but they're not prioritized. And I haven't, in my mind, and it would have been wrong for me to do so, put any emphasis on this is really more important than this is. There are things that were mentioned kind of over and over out in the field and online. But I know you will probably be working with that when you come to funding, because we will be bringing to you what we prioritize out of all this information through the district goals. And that'll be coming to you in maybe a couple of months. We can't do everything here, but we can do some things. And if we choose the most important things and we put our funding, effort, and time behind it, we can accomplish anything we decide to. It's just that we have to narrow it down to just a few and then really go after it. Do a few things very well.
Thank you.
Any other questions on this? Okay. Let's go to the other side of that page. And this is designated appropriately as a first draft of core values. So as Leslie said, we were in this room a month ago. They had an opportunity to read this whole document, and then I put them in groups of about 4, and each had one of the 5 questions or 4 questions that are within this, and I asked them to look for the core values, and we got them all in a big group of phrases. And we looked at them and we said, okay, based on what this is telling us in our experience, what we know about the district and what we have in place right now, what are the 3 or 4 or 5 greatest values that we are able to pull out of all of this work that was done in the field? So it isn't necessarily each individual's thought on that or what Andy thinks is right. We're trying to get the whole community to help us build the foundation of values before we do anything else. And we said to them over and over, we don't have anything in place right now. We have what we have already done. We have a mission statement already that we're going to test. We do have some core values right now, but we're looking at a new 5-year plan. Help us to see what these should be from your points of view. So the group worked, and I said, you know, I can go with as little as 3. I don't want more than 6. Let's try to be within there. So we have 5, and excellence is really one that you had before, and it was professional excellence as one of the district's core values. And it kind of comes out again, only this time we included students. So I like the term there, daily pursuit for students and staff of excellence. And I know out in the field, and from your point of view, that's what you'd like to see as well. Equity, we're looking at that for all different learning styles, all different abilities. Not everybody is going to achieve at the same level, but we should have everybody achieving at whatever their potential is. And that's the idea behind this. Safety is such a big issue right now. It was mentioned so often. And it's not just safety as something in the environment, it's also a child's feeling of safety about who he is or who she is. And talking about different races and different genders and different sexual preference, all of those areas come into the idea of safe and welcoming environments. Opportunities, that's a lot about the options that you offer in your great CTE programs and the extracurricular activities that students get to choose from a district this size compared to what's available around the state in districts this size. And then the last one, Life Ready. So many parents said, I'm really concerned that my son and or daughter is ready for whatever the next step is after high school. Realizing that it's not college for everybody, but it could be the armed forces, it could be into the work environment, it could be community college, it could be a trade school, an apprenticeship, but whatever they decide to do, we would like them to be ready for that and prepared. And so that's what that value is. With that, I'd like to open it up for your thoughts and ideas. I would invite Andy to say anything he'd like, Andy, and also Leslie. Thoughts and concerns?
Yeah. Jerry, on safety, were there any issues brought up with not just the physical safety, but the emotional safety?
Yes.
Was there any people bringing up any specific issues, like they felt there was problems?
Yes. Bullying is a big factor. Heard lots about that in the middle school. LGBTQ students mentioning not feeling safe or having people to talk with. I think there's some racial concerns in that regard. I would say it's minor, but there are areas like that were brought up. And I wouldn't say it overshadows the environmental safety at all, but it is still a factor. The easiest way to understand it is just the term bullying. Lots of talk about that.
Okay.
Other comments on the values?
Well, I think they're good. Thank you for your work. Thank you for what you guys came up with.
Yeah,
I mean, I like it.
Proud
It sounds like you guys are a really good start.
Yeah, I mean, for a first draft, I mean, I like that it's not wordy. Too many of these mission type statements get very paragraph driven, but these are very, there's the word, quick description. I like that style a lot.
We took the format from the U.S. Army.
Mhm.
The U.S. Army has like 4 or 5 one-words and then 2 or 3 words that define it. And we really like that format and decided to put ours in that format. It is important, though, that you see the word first draft, because we don't want to do things that you don't feel comfortable with. So our idea is to create this, do the work for you, and then bring it to you and let you decide what you'd like to change and how you'd like to change it. So we get your ownership as well.
Sure.
Because we don't want to just write a report and bring it to you and say, okay, the strategic plan is done. I'd like it to come to you in pieces for you to be able to debate and work with.
When I look at this, Jerry, it seems to shadow a lot of things that we're doing here already.
It is. In fact, if you take a look, opportunities is very similar to what you had before in your core values, unique schools within our boundaries, within our communities. And we already talked about the excellence. So these are things that are in place. I think the idea is how do we really sharpen the saw and get them even stronger? Yeah. So our mission statement and vision statement and goals will be built from these. Our idea is, this is the foundation of the house. We want the foundation to be really strong, and then we'll build stories above that. So we always want to start with our foundational pieces, which is, I think, a feeling of how we expect our employees to interact within their roles in the community and in the school district. How we expect students to pursue their daily work, and what the district really stands for, and what you as board members are trying to honor and respect within this community. So this is something that is an expectation that never really changes. The funding may get different, the curriculum could change a bit, our enrollment could go up and down, but these are the principles from which this district operates from.
Jerry, Leslie, these are great, and I support them all. Were there some that you can throw our way that didn't make this cut? I mean, it's easy for us to look at a list of 5 that have been whittled down, and these look great, but, we weren't in that meeting. I don't know all the ones that didn't make this list that I might have said were more important than these 5, right? So is there any that you can throw out there that were sort of similar to this that we cut off?
I'm going to ask my colleagues to help me on that. Andy, do you think of any? Andy, do you think of any? Leslie?
I don't think that there were, this is from my perspective, there weren't any ideas that weren't encompassed in one of these 5 keywords.
Okay.
So they maybe were more a portion of it, and then we got, okay, but really, we're talking about excellence. Like that idea is part of excellence. That's my perspective.
No, I would agree
Is
with
that-
you, Andy. I think that there were a lot of terms that we kind of said, well, under the umbrella of opportunity, CTE, athletics, clubs, it all falls under that umbrella. So let's choose this one word to take it all into account. I don't think that there was anything that was, you should have seen the room. We had paper up on the wall everywhere, and every group was writing words and visions and values and circling or putting a sticker next to what you agreed with. And anything that had, I think, more than 2 or 3 is encompassed within these words and values.
The only addition I can add to that, John, I think you captured that very well, Leslie, thank you, is there were some wordsmithing done, and keeping in mind, again, with Jerry's direction, as a consultant, he gives some incredible direction about creating a document that is not going to sit on a shelf and collect dust. Right, and something that's 10 pages long is going to be used much more as compared to something that's 50 pages long or 100 pages long. So with that mindset there, minimizing, not the importance of it, but minimizing the number of words. Crystallizing it, yeah. And really focusing on that foundation. So I was looking at, as a couple of examples, excellence, a daily pursuit for students and staff. That originally was probably twice that long. I think the word expectation was in there at one point, and the folks had an incredible conversation about what that really means, and let's crystallize it to a point that everyone understands what it is. Even something like the word expectation probably had a half a dozen definitions, and the group came to agreement that it probably shouldn't be included. Otherwise, these were essentially the main thrust of the themes, I should say, behind what we heard that morning.
And board members, if I could pick one, but it's like it's not quite a value. I still think the facilities piece is a really big issue in the community, as you know so well. Does it fit in a value, maybe welcoming environments? It didn't seem to, but I could see possibly in the goals and performance indicators where it does come forward. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Well, I can see definitely the idea that the middle school was like the #1 area for improvement. To me, it's not a super welcoming environment the way it is right now, and so definitely I could see that as part of the safety issue.
I'm glad to hear there was more talk about facilities, because and the need to improve the facilities, because when we didn't pass the last bond and came up with the middle school idea, we as a board knew that it was not ideal, and that it was not what we had envisioned at all. And so I'm glad to see that there's concern out there around that, because I think that is in the district's favor going forward for another bond and stuff, because people are seeing that, we can do better than what we have. So, and we knew as a board that and I think we said many times, this is not ideal. We know that this is not, the vision that we would like to see, but it's what we can do with what we have at the time, so.
One thing also in your favor, we heard quite a few comments about people appreciating the fact that we were out asking for their responses. And that came through both on the online survey, but also in face-to-face. For example, if this were a focus group that we worked with, some one or two of you would have said before we were done, we're really glad the district is out and asking our points of interest and concern. And I think that is a momentum piece that I didn't hear quite as much last time around, that may be helpful if you decide to look at something that you would be doing with facilities that, as we know, can be really expensive. But the state now is helping districts with a little bit of money, and they pass a bond. I think there's $4 million that comes forward. And we are seeing more bonds being passed in school districts than we have in the past. I do want to clarify the record on something. There's a negative comment, and it was about me that's in here, and it said, well, we started talking about the facilities, and the district representative, they call me a district representative, said that was really not what we were here for. The comment was misunderstood. What I didn't want people to think was we were out doing this because we're getting ready to pass a bond. This is work for a strategic plan to get our goals for the future. It wasn't to bring people together and say, okay, we're going to put a plan together and we're going to pass a bond for X, Y, and Z. So I felt it was important not to have people think the wrong thing of what our effort really was. And I hope you approve of that.
I think the ultimate judgment is going to be how we implement this. And when people thank you for coming out to ask them and including them and getting their opinion and taking the time out of their workday to come and, be a part of the groups, it's important to make sure that we truly listen and make sure that we truly implement what they're saying the best we can.
Very well.
So,
Very well
I mean,
said.
all this is pretty and great,
Yeah.
but it doesn't mean anything unless we actually listen and try to implement the best we can.
Yeah.
So, thank you for all the work.
Thank you.
And Shelley, that vibe is exactly what I was referring to as far as that energy that was in the room that first meeting.
Mhm.
Just hearing the passion in the voices of the people in that room and the care that they were taking, we were taking, gives me hope that that's exactly what's going to happen, is that this is going to form something that can be used and referred to and held as a standard.
That's terrific. Thank you.
I had just a neither here nor there question, but since you guys were talking about wordsmithing, under the equity one, when I read that, and I don't care either way, I don't have an opinion, but success for, and I put in there every student without reading the each. Did you guys talk about why use every versus each? I mean, I'm just curious. You talked about you spent a lot of time just on single words.
I don't usually see a difference between them, but the group did debate it, and I don't exactly know why we decided on each over
I
every.
kind of think each sounded more inclusive, that's kind of my recollection, and I wonder, was equity the one that we were also debating for all, or was that a different one? That each and for all were hot phrases and words in that meeting. There was a lot of care taken into
Yeah.
what was chosen.
I figured there was when I saw that word, especially since it's kind of underlined. I thought, well, that must have been a key word. So.
But see, and this is an area where we would want your input, because if there are words here that you'd like to change, what it does for us is it says that you have some ownership in this as well. It's not just something that a group puts together and gives to you and then you say, okay. So I'm always very interested in these plans for board members to make changes that they see appropriate. Something maybe for you to talk over, and you may want to have a meeting as we bring these things forward, just to sit down as a board and discuss suggestions that you may want to make. Our idea is to do the hard work for you, and then we want to bring it to you to do the polishing.
Yeah, I wasn't suggesting changing it. I was just curious since you talked about. I know that's when we did the last one. I remember conversations about how you spent lots of time just on certain words, trying
Yeah.
to pick the best ones. So. No, a lot of people in that meeting a lot smarter than me. So that's,
Anything we missed, Andy?
I think
You were
you've been
hoping
very
that
thorough.
we covered?
No, I think you've done a great job. Thank you, and I think it's really up to the 7 of these folks to make that same determination, but from my perspective, I'm very pleased. My only addition is, I'm shared this a little bit with the board, but I'm pleased that Jerry is back and that we're able to go round 2. And I think having his historical knowledge of our school district, well, he's not a district representative, I think in many ways he is. And he knows the school district based on his experience in the past. So that's a huge bonus from my perspective.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I have a question. Can we get this document put on board book?
Yes, and we've been waiting to share it with you as a board to get it in hand, and we'll definitely get it out.
That'd be great.
Okay. All right, anybody have more questions for these things? Okay.
Thank
All right,
you very
thanks,
much.
Jerry. Thanks, Leslie.
Thank you.
Very much for coming.
Happy holidays
Yeah.
to each of you.
You too.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for what you do
Leslie.
for the
Thank you.
community.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. It's a good school district.
Thank each and every one of you.
Yeah.
for all you've done.
Almost got it. Okay, next topic up. Talk about our thoughts on board representation at the teacher forums. We've been invited. A couple of us we've been invited to attend, and I guess we can talk about people's thoughts on it. I'll start. It's a difficult topic for it. It's hard for me to suss out what I'm not against it, but I think it would be better served if we had the 3 of them came about 3 months ago and presented, and we had a discussion, and that was a difficult discussion, but I thought it was a very, very meaningful discussion. And they were able to speak to all of us. And when you present to the board, cameras are on, everyone's here, everyone's looking at you. It really makes you focus, and it just helps you to distill down your arguments to what it is you're really trying to say. Well, what I'm concerned is that my concern is that if just 1 or 2 of us goes to the forum, people it might change the nature of that discussion, and they may be, I don't know, I guess I've never been to one, I'd be curious to see, but maybe they're going to just speak to the board instead of each other, or those 2 representatives, and I don't know what we do with that information that's gleaned from those 1 or 2. Will those 1 or 2 people hear it a different way? Will they report back to us at a public meeting? I'm not quite sure what to do with that. When the union reps come and present to all of us, I felt that it might be a little. it might be more productive. That's my thoughts on it. But I'm not gonna die on the hill, you know, I'm not gonna be dead against it, that's just my thoughts. I want it to be productive. So, anyway, anybody else's thoughts on it?
Well, before this suggestion came forward, I actually thought that it would be nice to get reports from the forum, and in thought of that time when the leadership came and talked to us. So that was something in my mind before we even got, this idea came up. So I guess I would agree with that.
Did that constitute, did you feel that that was a report?
Not necessarily. I mean,
Okay.
I think it was a certain kind of report.
Yeah.
But for me, I was thinking, like, if the forum is this, you know, it's got this purpose, it would be something that would be worthwhile for us to know what the topics were.
Yeah. I'm not quite sure how it's, I don't know, I don't think there would be any additional information you could learn at a forum that they couldn't present right here.
Well, it would be more in depth, but I agree with your point about just
Yeah.
if one or two of us went, there's an inequity of the amount of information that we're getting.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it would all come from the same, we would all be getting it from the same source if we were reported. And I do like the idea of the report coming from that group, because then it feels more genuine, I guess, and
Yeah.
authentic.
Yeah, so I don't know, that's where I came down on it.
I think that would be a good compromise too. I thought about this a lot the last few days, and I kind of have gone back and forth. But having a board representation at the forum, I can see, in the long run, in the whole big picture, I can see it to be more problematic than not. I think that, for one thing, I think that puts those two board members in kind of an awkward position, because you're gonna get questions, and you're gonna say, well, what does the board think about this? Or why can't we do this? Or why can't we do that? Or why is, and that's, if I was in that position, I would not want to answer questions, because at that point, you're speaking for the whole board, and that's not, I just think that could be very problematic and could run into some issues when we get to collective bargaining and some things like that, if some things are said because you feel like you need to give an answer. And I'm not expressing myself very well, but I just think that could be problematic. And I know that, I think what they're trying to get is more communication with the board. And so what you guys were talking about, that might be a good thing to have, 3 times a year or 4 times a year, whatever, have them come to a work session and give us a 10 or 15-minute presentation. We also run, and I mean, what are you gonna hear at the forum that we couldn't hear at that? Plus, you also could run into problems if there's a complaint, or if there's, we're the judiciary for things like that. And hearing things at the forum, you might get to a certain point and think, 10 minutes into the conversation, I shouldn't be hearing this stuff. And so I guess I don't think it's a good idea to have a board representative at the teacher forum. But because we already have a lot of systems in place to take care of complaints, and to take care of, if they have issues, they can talk to the whole board about it if they come here and speak to us. Or if they have, one thing we can also do if we're looking at policies and stuff, because I know they've said that you guys make policies without knowing how they even impact the classroom. We could make it a point to have Andy or whoever, if we're looking at certain policies, take the time to get feedback from the association on things like that. Much like we do with the calendar. We ask them every year about, their opinions on the calendar. And if we kind of make it more of a point to say, hey, do you guys have any thoughts on this?
Well, and the calendar actually is in the collective bargaining agreement as part of the forum. So I went through the collective bargaining agreement today, and that was part of one of the topics that is spelled out. the evaluation handbook, occasional after-work day, scheduling issues, prep time at the middle and high school, past practices not covered by the CBA. So those were the items listed as discussion items for the forum. So
Yeah,
Well,
some
and
of
I-
those things we talked about that in the last collective bargaining
yeah, that was in
thing
there.
too, yeah, so.
Well, and I think what I'm hearing is that we're assuming that things are going to be said that we shouldn't be hearing. But we don't actually know that. None of us have ever been to a forum. Do you know what I mean? So I guess what I want to learn is, the desire for one or two board members to be at a forum. What topics do they talk about? What topics are they not allowed to talk about? Things like that. And I think that, honestly, I'd like to know more about why they want us there, and what has been talked about in the past. You know what I mean? Like, we're sitting here just assuming that, something could come up and it won't be appropriate, or, something of that nature. And actually, I don't even know that. So I guess I would want more information about, that kind of thought process,
Well,
I
that's
just don't-
something that could be,
You know?
that if they came and give us a report,
Right.
that would help us to know what
Right.
you're talking about there too.
Yeah, I mean-
Rather than one or two board members being there
Well,
and
no.
having the possibility of.
Yeah, so I guess what I'm saying is, it's quite a jump to, say, can we have two board members come to our forums? Without actually knowing what happens in a forum, really, because none of us have been there. Do you see what I mean? So I guess I'd want to know information. Do you understand what I'm saying? I'd want more information about why they would want us there, and why they took that leap, and why can't they come to, a meeting every month and report to us? Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
So you
Yeah.
would be in favor of a report from,
Well, I guess my suggestion to kind of balance it out is, and it would be a good gesture of faith, is creating a permanent placement on our agenda each month. And have them come each month after their forum, whenever that is. And that way, they can present to us like, you said, in public during a meeting, which I'm always in favor of.
the forum is not every month.
How many forums?
Oh, I'm sorry, there's only
Three or four
6 a year.
forums
Yeah,
Right,
4 to
6.
6.
4 to 6, yeah, sorry about that, yeah.
Every 6 or 8 months.
4 to 6.
But they
So-
can come to the next meeting,
Right.
Work session.
work session, yeah.
Yeah, right, yeah, I mean, and just, I think that, maybe that's a reaching out and saying, yeah, we value what you are coming to ask us. We'll meet you halfway, just like we're coming up with ideas, meeting them halfway, instead of the full-blown going to a meeting. That, seeing it on our agenda is showing them that we are serious about them coming to present to us. I don't know, just kind of throwing out ideas.
Well, it seems like if,
Just, I don't know.
maybe allow them the opportunity to even voice the request if they want to participate on a monthly basis, because we do have 2 opportunities per
Oh,
month
right.
for them to participate. But if that's something they want to do, they're always welcome to voice that. And I think my concern, though, with some of the questions maybe that you shared with us just now on your thoughts is understanding our role and responsibility. There's a lot of minutia. And again, if we're getting caught in the weeds, I think it may bleed into more of an administrative task than it is a board role and responsibility, with really diving into the topics of the forum. So I'm more comfortable with having them come and present after every forum that they participate in, and if it's something they're willing to share, they can do it when we're all here at one time in our formatted board meeting, like we've done in the past. But to maybe send one or two or three or try to go en masse to the forum, I don't think would be probably the best use of the board at this time. But if they wanted to come and participate and then share afterwards, this is the proper forum.
Yeah, I totally agree, Ron. I mean, we operate as a collective group, not individually. And I feel like if they have something that they feel is important, they can come to the board and share it with us. And quarterly would be plenty.
Yeah, it doesn't need to be every month.
It doesn't need to be every month. I mean, we have a lot of stuff that we gotta go over. So that would be my thoughts.
And from my perspective, I generally err on the side of open dialogue. So as a rule, if somebody expresses an interest to talk to me, I generally want to hear what they have to say. I often ask I was taught at my work, that there's always the 5 whys, and without going into all the details of it, one of the components of that is there's got to be a reason behind the ask. And that actually is I'm much more curious about the reason behind the ask than I am about anything that's actually talked in minutia in the forum, right? So for me, that's actually the core question that I don't sense I have an answer to yet, is actually the motivation behind the request. What I'm struggling with is how do I get to the point where I understand the motivation without crossing some boundary that I don't fully understand regarding what I can and can't speak with them about. So that's where I struggle, is how do I have that, how do we create the space for that communication that we claim we want in a way that is appropriate. So I guess that's where I stand. I certainly support them presenting if they want to present. As you've said, there is that opportunity. They could ask anytime, probably. I'm sure we would grant them that. If they said they wanted to present quarterly or after every forum, which it sounds like would be more like every 4 to 6 months, whatever, I would support that too. So I guess I'm in favor of all of the above. I tend to err on the side of what can hurt, mostly because I tend not to worry quite so much about, what if I heard this and what if I heard that. I just don't fret over those things, I guess. But anyway, that's just some ramblings, but it's kind of my 2 thoughts.
Well, and that was my thought process first was, why, and then finding out the reason why and then going from there and, making a decision. Because I really can't say. I really can't. I don't know that everybody else can.
Well,
we don't know why, so I'm sitting here, trying to meet something halfway or not knowing why. So I don't know.
But we kind of do know why. We kind of do know why, because when this first started, it goes back to last summer when they requested to meet with each board member individually. And then they came here and they said they wanted to do that because they wanted to just to build more of a relationship with the board and increase communication with the board. And I think part of that is to have a direct line to the board. That's part of what I got out of it. And that's why, and then, that's why we had told them, we as board members can't meet with you individually. That's not our role. That's, there was definitely some overlapping of the board, in their mind anyway, of the board's role and the administration's role. And, as a board, it's not our place to meet with staff directly or to meet with association leadership directly. And so then I think when we decided that, that wasn't really a possibility, I think this was another idea they came up with. Well, maybe we could have board representation at the forum. And I think that was, a little bit of a kind of a compromise on their part, to have somewhat of the same end goal or whatever. And, you know, that's the way I remember kind of the way this unfolded. And coming to the forum, I remember them coming up and saying, you know, if we can't meet with you guys individually, or how about if you come, you know, have a couple reps come into the forum. But to me, that still is a little bit gray between the board's role versus staff and the administration role versus staff, with staff. Not versus, but with.
I think that it would be another opportunity to, you know, one of our main, I'm not saying that I am for or against this option, but, you know, one of our main jobs is to evaluate the superintendent. And so that would be an opportunity for us to gather information. So I don't think it's totally outside of the realm. I'm also not afraid of, you know, the complaint situation or the grievance situation that could come up. I think that would just have to be part of the ground rules if that happened. But at this point, it does, to me, make sense to invite the union leadership to present to us in the meeting.
I have no problem with that. I think that would be another kind of a compromise that we could give them to say, we want to hear from you guys, but we need to hear as a board instead of having two representatives, you know, come to your forum meetings. I think that's a good, to me, that's a good compromise.
Mm-hmm. It's
I'm
palatable
not
to me.
comfortable with a couple representatives going to the forum.
Yeah.
I just don't think I think there's too many kind of gray areas there.
Yeah, well, and they would get, they're not wrong, put it well, they could get drug into the weeds.
Yeah.
And then it's hard,
Yeah.
what do they do with what I just heard? How do I, yeah. And Jonathan stated really well at the beginning that one of the whys was, I think, you know, as someone who was upset about some things before I was on the board, I presented to the board a few times, and, you know, you have these conversations outside, and then, okay, I'm gonna go to the board, and you're like, wait a minute, I'm not sure about that, so you cut this off, and I'm gonna cut that off, and it just, it focuses you, it distills you down, okay, this is what's really bugging me, and let's talk about this one thing. And that's what I think, you know, that was a productive meeting at the end of the summer, they struggled, they were working, but it was productive. I enjoyed that meeting. You know, I felt I got something out of it with them. So I would like to see them 4 times a year.
You know, one of the things that I think might come into play in that type of dialogue, you know, if Andy comes and presents, there's dialogue, right? If, you know, Susie, parent, comes in, we listen, there isn't dialogue typically, right? But it seems like this particular group would warrant the same type of, the ability to respond or act. Now, maybe only within what's appropriate, but still, it seems like that's more of a report to us, similar to what I might get for the financials from Steve, right? It's more of a report. That, again, might be that level of communication that they're looking for. If all we do is sit here and listen, nod our heads, it feels a little probably empty to them. It doesn't mean it is, but it might feel that way.
That's a good point.
But
Yeah.
even in our public comment statement that Tom reads before public audience comes and speaks, it says you'll rarely get a response from the board. And so when that's read out loud and clear, then on that note, it is just a nodding of a head. So, you know,
Well, have them come to a work
I don't
session.
know,
Have
yeah,
them come to a work session and then,
yeah.
because we can,
We had dialogue.
you know, we
during
don't
the-
have public comment at work sessions, but this is, a work session is a time where
It's an opportunity
they
to,
could report to us and we could have that,
we
you
could
know,
have
bit
that
of a
dialogue.
conversation.
Okay,
Right.
yeah.
No,
That's a
I wouldn't want to see it during a regular meeting.
No, the
Right.
I think
meeting,
that would
yeah.
muddy it up.
Yeah, the meeting I'm referencing, it was 3-4 months ago, and it was a work session.
Yeah.
And we had back and forth, I liked
Yeah.
that a lot. I wouldn't want to waste their time I hope they would bring some topics that we would like to have a back and forth about.
I would like to hear from Andy, what he thinks about
Yeah.
that.
Well, the first question that comes to mind is, would you like all 4 of your employee groups to have this opportunity? You have 2 unions, you have an administrative group, and you have a non-represented group of employees in the school district. Now, I'm not opposed to public input and input from your unions. You need to hear from them, there's no question about it. And actually, from my experience with the unions in this district up until about a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago, is that this board would have the union president come about 3 or 4 times a year and present to you as a school board. Unsolicited, they do it on their own. Marie Trigger was very good about that, Joanne Stone was very good about that, especially. But that seemed to stop about a year and a half or 2 years ago, for whatever reason. And we've had some conversation with the union about that, strongly encourage that, say, come to the board meetings.
Right.
You have a right to be there, you have a right to speak. If you request to be on the agenda, we can even at times give you more than your 3 minutes. That has not been pursued. And there's lots of whys here, I agree. I'm not certain why. All I can do is rely upon a couple of the comments that were given to you by the union, and one of those, very specifically, was to have a conversation with you without administration present. And that's not okay. That's not legal, that's not appropriate, you'd be violating your own policies, and you frankly would be putting the school district at financial and legal risk. And so with all of that said, Dandy and I meet with the union presidents once, sometimes twice a month. We had a forum meeting today. It was very well attended. It was productive. It was thoughtful, great conversations, much of it specific to the collective bargaining agreement, much about the calendar, which you'll be receiving as a collaborative group from the forum that you get. It would have been very interesting if there were a board member at the meeting today to talk calendar when you as a board received the calendar from this group. So having that kind of interaction seems very premature to me, especially in light of something like that. So there's a couple of head scratchers for me, no question about it. So at times like this, I refer to your foundation documents, your policies, which are very specific, the collective bargaining agreement, which is very specific, your roles and responsibilities, and frankly, the rights of the union. The union has really no more rights to come and present to you than any member of the public. While I think they attempted to argue that point respectfully, I've disagreed with them, and I've had that conversation with the union president, but they made that clear in their meeting, the same meeting that night, Tom, that you had the conversation, that they believe that they have something called the equity principle, which I asked the union to define that, they never responded to me. I asked our attorney to define it, she couldn't find it. The closest we would come is that the union has a right when it comes to representation of its employees and its members during grievances and employee matters, but that's the extent of it. You of course want to offer that courtesy to them. They're a driver in this school district. They are by definition a stakeholder, and a significant stakeholder. So is a classified union, so is your administrative team, so your non-represented team. There's a 5th one, and that's me, your superintendent. There are 5 bodies of employees that you have to work with in this school district. So as you dialogue about this, I ask you to think about that.
Yeah, that's true.
About whether it's more appropriate to ask offer the invitation and say, you're welcome to come to the board at any meeting, just like you have in the past. And on occasion, we're happy to put you on the agenda, but I would strongly advise you that you offer the same thing to the other 4 or 3 employee groups in the school district.
Is there anything in any of the other collective bargaining agreements or equal to the forum? Because see, I think that's where it's, to me, that's a little bit different than the other groups perhaps, that they have the forum that's written in the collective bargaining agreement, so.
Yeah, I think there's some merit to that, Jennifer. However, from an optics standpoint, I think you'd have some strong arguments from other groups.
From other people. So what if we just reached out and said, we enjoy, hearing from you. We would like to, invite you to come to the public comment period during the regular meeting, especially to report on the forum. That's something that we're interested in.
Yeah.
So that it's not a special agenda item necessarily. It's, I think that our rules say 5 minutes, right, for groups that are, and so those guidelines are already kind of built into that process already, so it makes sense to me to piggyback on a process that we already have.
Yeah, I'm probably a minority here, but I would not be in favor of dialoguing with this group because that's immediately what my inclination would be, is that other groups would want us to dialogue with them. We can't give a certain group priority over another group. They're welcome, I would say they're welcome just like anybody else to come and comment, and that would be the extent of it.
And our public comment guidelines
Yeah.
mention
And
that
everything
we
follows.
won't have, there won't necessarily be dialogue.
Not
Otherwise,
necessarily, but if something captures, if some, you know, a board member is more than welcome to ask a question. We've done that. I mean, we do that once in a while. If something, they might be talking about something that makes it, that we're a little more familiar with. Generally, when we get public comment, it's something out of left field and we're like, oh, okay, this is something we're not familiar with. And maybe if it's, I mean, it might lead to some dialogue,
Can I just
but
chime
go
in
ahead.
over here? I think that if you open up yourselves to dialogue during public comment, then people are gonna start asking the question, well, why are you dialoguing with the association, but you're not dialoguing with us during public comment time?
yeah.
I think it'll be hard for people who
Yeah.
don't understand the nuances to accept that.
Yeah,
Well, we-
I would
we-
just, I guess I wouldn't be asking about getting specifics, but I may ask a follow-up question. It's
Sure.
just, and I would respond saying that what they're asking about a topic I'm on top of and happen to be familiar with at this moment, so.
I
Yeah.
think the association will bring up a lot of things that you will wonder about and that you will want to ask questions about. So I think it will be tough for you in a public comment time to not want to ask a lot of questions.
Right, and I'm not saying I will, I'm just saying that it.
And I think our response isn't it appropriate for our response to be to ask our executive to follow up on
Yeah,
those things?
yeah.
Instead of the direct, because I have the same concern, not just with that group, but just, I've expressed this before here, that if one group or issue gets a lot of talk and another one doesn't, it just seems like perception can be, yeah, you just don't know what, I
Well,
would be concerned about.
It's a good point, yeah, this is all a good point. I mean, here I am thinking like, oh yeah, let's have them come in and talk and we're getting, you know, it's an equity thing. You know, and if a couple of us go to a teacher forum at the regular meeting, well, if the other groups say, we have regular meetings, we want two of you to come to this one now too. And so now we're,
Well, isn't our format already established? And I think we just talked about this 15 minutes ago. We seem to be digressing here. So the public meetings is more of a listening opportunity. The workshop here is where we can dialogue, we can engage, we can go back and forth and ask questions. So if they wanted to engage and then share in depth where we can participate, tonight would have been the perfect opportunity. So we can share with them if they want to present. They've got an opportunity at the regular board meetings. However, if they want to dialogue, the workshop is where they would probably get, if it's more appropriate.
Yeah, but I
But then at the
would
same-
even, no,
Sorry.
I would just, that whole meeting is to circumvent the administration. They need to go through the proper channels, period. If they want to be transparent, they need to go through the administration. That's the way I see it. That's the big why.
Right. I mean,
Yeah, and like, you know, if we have people come and report on the forum, then you have to, you know, and have a dialogue with them, then you're gonna have classified people coming in and having a dialogue with them, which isn't a bad thing, but there's gonna be things where we as a board can't talk about. There's gonna be employment things, there's gonna be things that we as a, you know, that aren't our role, it's administration role. And so, like I'm kind of going back to, we already have processes in place to take care of all that stuff. You know,
Yeah.
so maybe we just respectfully tell the association we don't feel it's appropriate to have board members come to have board representatives on the forum and leave it at that.
Well, I
I mean,
agree.
have gone full circle, but we really do need to follow the processes we have in place in board rules and responsibilities versus administration rules and responsibilities. And I mean, if there's a complaint, we have processes for that. If, you know, we're dealing with a couple of those right now that the people didn't like the results of the high school administration, and they didn't like what this administration decided, and so now they didn't like what we decided, so there's still, and that's still continuing. So there are things in place to take care of all that, and I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
But I think once again, we're assuming it's all going to be negative. All of it. I mean, that's what I'm hearing from you.
No, it's not.
But that's what I'm hearing from you, like, I think that there's a lot more that happens at forums, and a lot more is talked about. When I was reading what Andy sent us, the multiple, information, I guess tips on creating labor management committees. This doesn't necessarily, I don't know how this was connected with board members, but the ones that, I guess I'm looking at this as a proactive step for communication. It creates opportunities for, a healthier relationship amongst, people in our community. I'm not looking at all of what could potentially happen that's negative. I think that, it's going to be clear what can be talked about and what can't be talked about when we're in a discussion with anybody, let alone just, the Education Association. And so I think that, just rejecting them completely is not it's just not a show of good faith, and having them being welcome at our meetings and such. I don't know, I
don't think that's
I don't know.
rejection, Shelley, though. I think that's redirecting.
Right.
Because
Okay.
if anybody should know the policies, they should know them.
Right.
Really? So let them follow it. We're not doing anything to reject them. We're just redirecting them.
And if there's something from Forum that some great things happen at Forum that they would like to share with the board, they can come to a regular meeting just like anybody else can. But
True.
that doesn't
But they
necessarily
might
mean that
want-
we have to have a dialogue with them.
But they might want to have dialogue with us with those good things.
Well,
Do you see what I
everybody
mean?
a lot of people
At
that
a
go
work
to regular
session.
public comment want to have a dialogue with us, and it's not always
Right.
appropriate. So
But-
I'm just saying, I think we need to be consistent in the way we
Right.
approach this stuff.
So we can say that they can come here and have a dialogue, or they can come to the
I
regular
would-
meeting and.
Well, that would have to go through
I mean, do you see what I
Andy
mean?
and Tom. Andy and Tom are the ones who set the
Right.
agenda. So
Yeah.
anybody who comes here to a work session
Right.
has to be on that agenda. So they could approach
Right.
and
Good request.
there could be an issue,
Yeah.
And that's
there
why
might
I
be
brought up the
discussion.
agenda
There might-
earlier, was maybe that might be a good idea.
Yeah, I mean,
I just,
Yeah, I mean, if they have an issue that would be productive with some dialogue,
yeah.
have them come to a work
But
session.
you guys decide.
Well, I do have a couple of suggestions. One of them is we can surely ask the association if they're interested in coming to every board meeting. Because if you were to place them on the agenda, there would be some assumption that they would come and spend 3 minutes with you at every board meeting. There may not be an interest in that. We haven't seen the association present at every board meeting this year. So that would, I think, be a result of that conversation. Second to that is Dandy, normally Dandy, but one of us types up a summary or has a summary of the forum conversation. Generally, it's very, very I guess, descript about what some of those conversations were, and they're minimal, similar to this conversation. If any member of Forum began discussing something confidential, student information, personnel information, we have to stop them, and I've had to do that a number of times in forums to say we can't talk about that here. And so with that said, what we document, Dandy I'm happy to share that information with you after every forum. And we can share it with the association as well, so they see what we're sharing with the board. But it's the same information. So that might be another intermediate or compromising step, so that you get to see and hear what happens in forum. Admittedly,
Yeah.
80-90% of forum is what's going on at your schools. rarely do we have a contractual issue
And,
surface.
yeah, and is this, and this is a report you guys are, you're already preparing?
Yeah, we prepare for ourselves, we share it with administrators and.
Right, but you would just add us to the list, it wouldn't be additional work, it's just something that's already being done.
Right, and it's replication of many of the same piece of information you hear from administrators at monthly meetings, you know, a lot of the same information. So we'd be happy to do that. Ask the association if they're, and encourage them to come to your monthly meetings. Spend 3 minutes. If they're interested in being a place on the agenda, we can surely have that conversation. But again, I think we have to be very cautious with your 4 employee groups about offering the same thing. As compared to just the general public access to the board.
Yeah.
And I do want to say one thing, and I know Sheila used the word speculation at that point. We can only speculate what they're going to speak of, and it may not be that bad, you're right. We can only speculate. However, risk versus reward. At this point, the risk outweighs the reward. So they have opportunity to come and participate and share, and that word rejection is way too strong. I think that was really improperly placed, because that's not how I feel.
Okay.
We are not rejecting them. Hey, we're here to embrace them, but we have the format set up for them.
Right. I know, and I think we're all just trying to figure out how this works.
Exactly.
This
But
is
again,
all
risk versus
brand,
reward.
this is all brand new. And to me, I mean, have you ever had a SFEA come to you as a board member and ask you to come to their forums before I was on the board?
Well, I was part of that text group where they wanted to meet with me individually.
Okay, yeah. So I guess it's all new ground. This is all new territory, and I think we're just all learning what that means. And this discussion, this is a very healthy discussion on
Right.
what that means. And so everybody has a great point here. I mean, I've learned a lot from all of you tonight. And I think that we're trying to just figure out what that looks like, what that vision is, and how that works. So I appreciate your comment. Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know, I mean,
I
I think
don't,
we've been.
yeah, but I don't think it's all new ground, because this is kind of the same thing I've heard about at different times, you know, in the last many years, just about communication with the board and how they would love to just come and talk to us about anything, and you just can't do that.
Well, it's new
But
for me, being on the board, so
Yeah,
this is
no,
new territory
yeah.
for me.
But I'm just saying,
you know,
I mean, this is a different.
and I'd like to learn everything
This
I
is a
need to
different
know.
way, this is a different way to go about it, is the forum
Right.
thing. I would love to have people come and tell us about the positive things that are happening in their schools. You know, if that's what's, or
Well, if
to
that's
get
what, I mean,
to get the forum report.
if
but-
that's mostly what Andy says is happening there, then great. I
Yeah,
mean,
but there's ways we
that's-
can do that within the framework we already have.
That's true, and that's what we're discussing now.
Yeah.
And how that works, and, yeah.
So can I suggest kind of a closing point
Yes.
maybe? So I'm in agreement with those proposals that Andy has suggested. It sounds like we're all kind of comfortable. Are we all kind of comfortable with that?
Yeah, Jennifer, good.
So when the next time you two meet to discuss the next agenda, can you?
Yeah, well, we'll just, you know, tell Andy just to let them know that they can present anytime. That we're just like, you know, what happened in the past, and if there's and you know, if they ever have an item that would require some discussion, they can run it by us, and maybe we can add them to a work session.
Okay.
Is that kind
And
of?
so what I'm going to encourage,
Yeah.
or what I'm going to suggest is
Yeah.
that I do that with all 4 of your employee groups, that I send the same message to the classified union, to the administrators, and to the non-represented folks, to let them know that everyone has the same public 3-minute opportunity to come to the board. You're welcome to send a representative to have a conversation with the board, which again, that's not a written rule per se, but that's available to anyone at any time, including representatives from the union. So I think in order to treat each one of your employee groups equally, that we offer the same thing to all of our employee groups.
You mean
Yeah.
equity?
Sounds
As a-
great.
As a point of clarification, they want them to get 5 minutes because they are representing.
If they're representing a group
Right.
Sure.
of
Yeah.
3 or more people, I
Yeah,
think is
well,
what.
each of them would theoretically be represented.
Each group or every group?
If they're employees.
Each and every,
Oh, it's good.
All of them.
All right, fish on.
all the time.
I also,
Does it sound okay to you guys?
That's fine to me.
yeah, good
Yeah.
discussion. I think,
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
everybody
It
had
really
an
was.
open mind, and
Yeah.
I think it's good that Tim totally changed his mind.
went
That
full
meant that he was flexible.
Came back to where I started.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No! Could have saved a lot of time, just say no.
Just say no.
That doesn't work.
All right. Okay.
Good discussion.
Yep. good
Really good.
discussion.
Never mind.
Okay. All right. Well, I think we're good with that. Okay.
Yes.
All right. Well, that's our last discussion item. Does anybody have any further business?
Merry Christmas, everybody.
Merry
I just
Christmas.
wanted to mention that I went to the concert band performance the other night. My son plays the saxophone, and it was beautiful. It was so well done and well attended. And I'm in awe of, that my son still wants to play the saxophone. So really, I mean, he was about to quit after he left 8th grade, and this music program saved him, honestly. And now he's still playing, and he loves it. So it was really fun. It was fun to see administration there, and
super.
yeah,
I went too.
it was good.
really good.
Did you go?
Tim, you went?
It was
Yeah.
beautiful.
It was really good.
It was really well done. So anyway,
Choir's Wednesday, I think.
It-
The
It
choir.
is Wednesday, Saturday.
choir's
So-
Wednesday, yeah.
And most of your K-8 schools are doing some kind of winter Christmas programs
Right.
all week this week.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
awesome.
all the groups were really good at the band.
Yeah.
It's such a gift.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Anything else?
Thanks,
Okay.
everybody.
Thank you. Meeting
Thank you.
adjourned.
Merry Christmas.